In this video, I discuss how to use a simple, easy, and quite accurate retirement budget using an Excel download that I provide just for you. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
Today, I'm going to start off by talking about a pet peeve of mine, and that is typically budgeting software is missing one crucial element. It's not really the fault of the software or the software designer. Today's software just downloads a lot of data from your various accounts, puts it into a format that allows you to categorize it once and then never again, and then gives you a spit out of different categories. But what's missing is the ability for you as a human being to consider transaction by transaction whether or not there is a cheaper way to purchase whatever it is you want to purchase, or even forego the purchase altogether. Also, some people don't like giving their financial information to online sites for fear of being hacked or bombarded by very income and asset appropriate ads that seem to be speaking just to you miraculously. Well, I'm not sure if the first risk is really a big one if you manage your email passwords properly, but the second one is undoubtedly a risk, particularly since your financial information is typically only shared between you and your financial institution. Now, when you give all of it packaged up together to a third-party software, well, you can see how targeted ads might start to happen. What we're going to talk about today is a much simpler and frankly easier to use way to budget. You'll be able to understand your money much better than you could using the powerhouse software that grabs your data and just categorizes it for you. And only because we're on the subject, usually they don't get it right, at least not at first. Oftentimes they will put something in a category where it doesn't belong, and then you have to go in and recategorize it later. But most importantly, using an Excel spreadsheet, a template designed for budgeting, allows you to think deeply about each transaction. Let me give you a brief tour of the free Excel download. By the way, this template works just as well for non-retirees as retirees, although admittedly, some of the categories, or at least the subcategories, really reflect the issues, concerns, and opportunities for those in retirement. Still, you don't have to use those, and the template will work just as well for you. All right, let's jump in. This template tracks two and only two things: what you bring in and how much you spend. It won't track your net worth, monitor your credit score, or find less expensive credit cards for you. That's not this type of template. And by the way, all of those things are really important to know. They just don't belong in a budget. They belong somewhere else. You can download this budget for free at holyschmidt.com/budget. You don't need to do it now. In fact, it's probably better if you just watch the video. I will remind you at the end what the download URL is, so you don't need to write it down now. The template outlines two and only two tabs. Tab 1 is what I call the Estimator tab. This tab has 11 different spending categories and dozens of subcategories within those 11 categories. The Estimator is really powerful because I've spent a lot of time trying to come up with every conceivable subcategory that I could think of or find on the internet. Of course, you will undoubtedly have a few that aren't on there, but the good part about the Estimator is that you can look at the categories, and that will represent about 90, maybe even 95% of where you actually spend your money. For example, in the automotive category, I have a subcategory called tolls. Now, for many of you, you wouldn't really think about putting a budget in for tolls because it may amount to only $20 or $30 per month. But if you stack all of these small costs up against one another, they come out to a big number. Similarly, in the other category, I have a subcategory for pet costs. Now, most people think about their pets, but they don't think about budgeting for things like food, medical care, grooming, etc. Of course, as hard as I tried to capture all the subcategories, I undoubtedly will miss something because each budget is very bespoke for the person who is doing the budget. And so there is a number of spots in each of the categories for you to add your own subcategory. Once you have the subcategories approximately right, go in and add your estimate for the monthly expense in each one of those categories. If it's something that you pay periodically, not monthly, but say quarterly or semi-annually or annually, like say insurance, put the appropriate number in for the month. For example, if you pay your insurance every 6 months, let's say you pay $600 every 6 months, put $100 in for that month, and then you'll move that $100 into a side account at the end of the month. In the estimator, I also put whether the account is likely an accrual account or a monthly account, because there is a big difference. When you're accruing, then you're moving money from one account to another. When it's an expense account for the month, you're just paying it. You could and you should use your bank statement and your credit card statement to get an accurate picture of these subcategories, the amounts in the subcategories. Left unchecked, people often get inspirational about what they put in there, and this isn't about putting a budget in place yet. We'll get to that a little bit later in the video. Once you have all of the subcategories that represent where you really spend your money and the estimates in the subcategories that you spend your money, it's time to use the second tab. In the second tab, this is where you actually enter your transactions, and it will show you with a nice bar chart and numerically how you did compared to your estimator. The second tab is labeled 2023. That is, of course, for the year 2023. If you aren't in 2023, if you're in 2024, 2025, just change the year on the tab at the bottom. You don't need to do anything else except for that. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to assume that we're doing this work in 2023. And by the way, for each year, save the template and then start a new one rather than adding a new sheet. There are a lot of Excel formulas in here, and if you keep adding years into the template, for those of you who are really good at Excel, it will get bogged down very, very quickly. I tried designing this the other way. It just didn't work after 2 years. By the way, if you are an Excel geek like me and you want to actually know how this template was built, I will put a link in the description below to a site called Work Smarter, Not Harder. And this is the basis for the template that you see in front of you. They did a really good job there in terms of explaining how to build the template. I just modified it a bit for those in retirement, and I also added the estimator. The first thing that you'll notice is that the totals on the estimator have transferred over to the worksheet where we're going to enter our transactions. For example, the home section has $2,500 as its total spending on home and home-related activities. If you look to the right, you'll see on the bar chart or next to the bar chart a $2,500 estimate for that budget. Each category has the same exact way of working. And if you look at both the estimator and the template where you enter your transactions, you have two colors of text, blue text and black text. Blue text is where you enter data. Black text is something you don't want to touch because that's a formula or that's a permanent piece of information that needs to stay where it's at. And for completeness, one of the reasons it's so important to get the data right in the subcategories is because you're going to learn how to tweak your budget over time as you move forward and you build those categories. If you just blindly said, I think that my home category should have approximately $2,500 of expenses, but you didn't know what the makeup of that was, you may even be right, but there's limited scope for you to do anything with that. More importantly, by watching how accurate your estimate is, you have the ability to question the expenses to see if there's a better way to spend your money or not spend it at all in certain circumstances. Now let's get into the spreadsheet itself. On the right, you have a progress chart. This shows a line, and how far to the right that line is represents how close you are to spending the amount you've allotted for your budget. On the left is where we put all of the data. You'll see lines where you can enter each one of your transactions. As I said before, if it's blue, you're good to go. You can put the data in there. If it is black, just leave it alone and it will take care of itself. You'll notice 5 different columns where you can enter data. Column B is the date. Column C is a short description. Column D is the category column, and you have one income option if it's income or money coming in, and 10 expense options if it's money going out. Column E is your income column, so that's the actual amount you put in if you have money coming in. And column F is the expense column if you're paying something out. Column A is simply the month column. That's the month that the transaction was completed. It's auto-generated. You don't want to touch this column. It auto-generates based on the date that you put in column B. And finally, column G is your current balance. Again, like column A, you don't want to touch this column. It's black. Don't touch it. It auto-calculates for you, so you don't need to do anything with column G. Now it's time to start entering transactions. But first you need to tell the template what your current balance is, because it needs to know how much money you have. And then from there, it can start tracking incoming and outgoing revenue and expenses. In column B2, you put today's date. In the description, you put current balance. And in E2, you put your opening balance. In the example we're using here, let's say your opening balance was $1,000 in your bank account as of right now. Now, strictly speaking, current balance is not income, although column E is for income, but we're going to embellish a bit just for this one entry. We only do it once a year, and it's better than touching that black column on the right and adding your current balance there, because we don't want to touch anything in that column. And by the way, the question often comes up when having discussion about budgets. The amount that you budget is the actual cash coming into your bank account, not the pre-tax amount, but the amount that you actually receive. This means after-tax income from your job or your part-time job if you're working, the amount on your Social Security check that actually reaches to your checking account. If you have a 401k distribution, the amount that actually goes into your checking account. Don't think about whether you're going to pay taxes on it or not. That's not the purpose of this budget. After that, you just start entering transactions from that point forward. Anything that happens after today, after the opening balance that you put into the spreadsheet, gets cataloged on this worksheet. Make sure you put it in the right category and watch the graphs on the right start to change. At the end of the month, you will know whether you were over budget or under budget. One note though, in row 2, column I, cell I2, you do need to put the month that you are analyzing, because you can put in any month once this is populated with data and see how you did versus your budget in that particular month. So that's the beauty of having this type of format. You can do a lot of analysis, and it's a very personal relationship you have with your money. By the way, when I was putting the spreadsheet together for you, I actually test drove it on myself, and I noticed that in the home category, my cable and streaming services together were quite bloated. The question I really had was, why do I need cable at all if I can effectively download a live TV app and capture most of the same channels, and I'm not paying for cable boxes if I get rid of cable, which I have now done. I saved $150 a month by doing this exercise for you. As a reminder, don't forget to go to holyschmidt.com/budget to down your free Excel template, your retirement budget template. Also, if you like this video, check out that video. It's entitled Retirees Spend 80% of Their Income in These 5 Areas. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.